Parent Information Evening. My name is Neil Gregory. I'm the head of Year 10 at the college. Could I ask that all mobile phones are turned off? Thank you. Let us begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. God, our Creator, help all our young people to know their vocation in life and assist them to prepare for it. For your greater glory and for the well-being of your people, call many to be ministers of your love, justice and peace. Give to them grace to respond generously and persevere faithfully in caring for this world and its people. Help us all to recognise the presence of your wisdom in the youth of today and to encourage them in their response to you. St. Marcel and Champagne, pray for us. Mary, our good mother, pray for us. May we always remember to pray for one another. In the name of the Father, the Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. I will start with some information about what our Year 10 students have been doing in regards to careers this year. Careers have been a focus of our pastoral care lessons. Boys have completed a careers research assignment, which covers interests, abilities, values, while researching the job guide through the Good Universities Guide website. This year we've conducted interviews for our Year 10 students with our careers counsellor, Mrs. Light. These interviews cover traineeships, apprenticeships, universities, TAFE options and career building. The interviews will continue this term until completed for all students. Representatives from the Police Force, Defence Force, JCU and QCU will hopefully visit during the semester. For latest up-to-date information on careers, visit the Parent Portal. This evening you'll hear from our Directors of Studies, Mr. Lance Helms, discussing the process for selecting senior subjects, ATAR, QCE and pathways. There will be opportunity for you to speak with the heads of department on the various subjects offered in the senior school. I will now invite our college principal, Mr. Matthew Brennan, forward for his address.
Thank you very much to Mr. Gregory, and can I also echo Mr. Gregory's welcome. Thank you very much for coming this evening on what for many of you will be a rehash of what you may have heard in the past, in the sense that you may have had older students go through either here or another college here in Cairns or further afield. But for many of you, this will be the first time you've heard the information about going from Year 10 to Year 11. Certainly I would say that it is a really important time in your son's education here at school. It's important because they get an opportunity outside of a couple of subjects which Mr. Helms will go through with you that are compulsory, that they have an opportunity to pick whatever they would like to choose, whatever interests that they have across a spectrum of many different areas. And I've only got 3 pieces of advice around that, and then we'll talk about a couple of other things. But for me, the first and most important thing for your son and for you in the discernment process when you're discussing what to do next year, for me, by and large, the most important thing is to pick something that your son likes. It is really important. He is going to be doing it for 2 years. There'll certainly be challenges along the way. There'll be highs, there'll be lows, there'll be moments of high motivation, moments of low motivation. But if you can get him to do something that he likes, that is a really big step forward. Secondly, to pick something that he's good at. And again, we obviously all want our boys to achieve their very best. And to pick something you're good at would be also really, really important. And the third piece of advice I would give is do not pick something that you are picking because your friends are doing it, or your son's mates are doing it, or you're picking it for a particular teacher that you like. Because like any institution in any school, teachers come and go and they move for all sorts of different reasons. And certainly, whilst it may be something you like being in class with your mates, it really is, for my way of thinking, class time, particularly in senior school, is your work, and your time with your mates is obviously recess and lunch before and after school, weekends and those sorts of things. So I think if you use as your compass around these selections, those 3 pieces of advice, pick something you're good at, something you like, and importantly, don't pick it on what might happen in the lives of others, should stand you in really good stead. While I've got the floor for a couple of minutes, I did want to welcome you back. I know it's a very unusual seating plan, but obviously due to the COVID restrictions, we are limited. But we were really adamant. Obviously, a lot of events have been postponed, very few, but a few have been cancelled. We felt that this night was just really important, as the others have been, but this one particularly, because it is an important time in your son's life. And we have had extensive discussions with CES around how we could manage to have this many people in a venue and what we had to do to comply. And I thank certainly our maintenance team, led by Mr Barnes, for setting up. Obviously, you had to register, so Mrs Dean and Mrs McCormack in the front, and all of the work that Mr Helms has done. One of the things I want to just quash about senior study, and then I want to throw a couple of opportunities at you. There is often, and obviously for Queensland, this year will be our first year of going with external exams. Our first year when our students will receive an ATAR. And I'm not going to go into any detail with that, other than to let you know Mr Helms is going to tell you all about it. And apologies in advance, and this is not to do with Mr Helms, this is the system. You're more than likely to come out with more confused than you perhaps come in with, but you will have a lot of questions. But I guess one of the things I want to tell you about the system, or one of the myths of the system, is that you've got to pick subjects that are high ranking or high scoring. And again, Mr Helms will go through this with you. So you decide your son is going to do physics, chemistry, maths methods, because they're the subjects that will score the highest. The reality is, if you do poorly in those subjects, you won't score very well at all. The reality is, if you are no good at those subjects, or you don't like those subjects, or you don't work hard in those subjects, you won't do very well at all. The fact is, if you've got to spend all your time potentially on those three subjects, the subjects that you are good at, the subjects that you do like, you may have to neglect in order to try and keep up to pass those subjects. So that would be one of the things that I would really advise you against, picking a subject because you think it's going to score. And again, Mr Helms will give you better examples of that. But again, given your sons, it will be the third year through in Queensland, we're certainly going to be in a far more confident position than so many other schools will be because of the processes that we're going through. And we're also going to be in a position to ensure that your son is well advised. The other piece or the other opportunity, and I'll leave you with this, is that you are also in a very fortunate position to be part of not only a great Catholic school in a wonderful systemic arrangement with CES, and also very much so the Maris network, but we are also the only all-boys boarding school in Cairns. And certainly a major focus of our boarding community is the academic pastoral care and the rigour that goes around that. And whilst this won't be for all students, it's certainly a great opportunity for those who are interested to explore the opportunities of a weekly boarding situation, where we do have structured study twice a night through the course of the week. We do have it supervised by staff. We do have tutors that are in there working either in small groups or one-on-one with the student. And certainly there's been a groundswell of some really positive academic results in the last, certainly in my time here. And there's a case of a student who was a weekly boarder who was here and he was getting A's and B's, and this is a true story, up until semester one last year. He then convinced his parents that he wanted to go back at home, that he'd learn all of the tricks of boarding. He got himself into a routine, got himself in the structure, and he was going to do very well at home. He did that, and his grades dropped from an A to a C across the board, not across the board, but generally speaking on average. And he and his parents realised that for him, and it's not for everybody, but for him boarding was a really positive way of going, and he's now back in boarding doing very, very well. And I say that because as a parent of two young, well, they're not young children anymore, 23 and 19, having sat there as a parent and gone through this, and also with my hat on as a director of boarding at another school, I know that I was never in a position to provide the structure and the routine for my own children that could be done in a boarding school. So if that is something that you are of interest, please don't hesitate to speak to perhaps me at the end of the evening, or just contact the college office. Mr John Brimstone, our Director of Boarding, would be very happy to give you a tour of the facilities and to give you a little bit more information around that. So I don't want to talk too much about that other than to say that it is an opportunity. We are the only school in Cairns that offers this all-boys boarding environment, and if it is something you think that would work for your son, please explore those opportunities with John. Just in closing, I would like to thank in advance Mr Helms and all of the staff that have come here this evening in order to prepare you as best as we possibly can as your son journeys into post-compulsory schooling in the years 2021 and 2022. I know that they're involved, or they're in an environment which, having only been here, this is my second year, seeing an environment where if you buy into the culture of the place academically, you will definitely achieve the results that you are not only capable of, but in many instances last year, and I'm already seeing the results for our current Year 12 cohort, are certainly going to exceed the expectations they had when they started Year 11. The fact that you're here tonight shows me that you are serious about this and that you are committed to this. And I'd also like to thank those parents who will be watching this on a link that will be sent out tomorrow, our boarding families and others who couldn't be here. So again, and I'll leave it there, but I do thank you again for coming. I do encourage you to start the process, having those conversations with your sons, having the conversations with the teachers, and let's make sure that we get the perfect package for your son, because they're all unique and they're all looking for something different. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? That's marvelous. Okay, now I know there is quite a bit to get through tonight. If I am going too fast at any one time, I do apologize, but I am very conscious that many of you will want to get home to dinner, and especially some of the boys will want to have second dinner or third, whatever they may have. All right, my job today is to try to give you some information about the subject selection process that's going to begin, well, today. You might have known from your sons that we've distributed a subject selection form, and they were able to see this morning what subjects were on the lines. So have your sons shared that with you yet? A little bit? Little nod of his head? A little bit? All right. So my job is going to be to take you parents through the process and see how you go. As you might be battling occasionally with your sons over what subjects you're going to take. It is a partnership, please keep that in mind. I know sometimes the boys can be a little stubborn and they can bite off their noses despite their face, but we need to be there to assist them in making the best choices in the beginning, and if they need to change their subjects, to assist them through that as well. All right, so students, hopefully all of you can see the screen. These are questions I want you to think about as we go through this presentation. So what am I good at? What do I like? What are my career goals? That's a big question for Year 10 students. You may have absolutely no idea. What I'm hoping is that by the time you finish Year 10, you have a pretty good idea if you are going to go to university or not. That's the main decision that you need to have. If you're fairly certain you will be going to university, then we look at specific pathways, and all that will be happening during your set plan. But I do want you to focus on that last question there. What do I do if my parents and I disagree on my career path? That is not something that I can solve. Mr. Brennan cannot solve that. That will be an ongoing process. But what we're hoping is that with subject selections, you are listening to each other. So young men, we want you to listen to your teachers and to your parents. And parents, we want you to listen to your sons. Because they're going to give you a good indication if they are going to work hard enough in the direction that you might be pushing. So do keep that in mind. Okay, to the nitty-gritty. Possibly. There we go. Back up. Now, at the end of Year 12, the SEP comes out from QCAA. So the first part of this presentation I'm giving you is only based on QCAA, the Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority. So different items that you will get as a senior statement. It basically says, gentlemen, these are the subjects that you took when you were in high school. Hopefully you will get a QCE, which is the Queensland Certificate of Education. It is a graduate certificate. It actually means that you passed high school. So should you not pass high school, you will not get one of these. There's also a QCIA, and for students who need a little more individualized plans, we put something together tailored to their needs. So parents, I'm not going to have that discussion with you tonight. There might be someone, there might not be in this cohort that we need to look at that. So on the whole, I'll be addressing the QCE, which is the General Certificate in Education. Now the last thing that you might have on offer is a vet certificate. So at our college, we offer a few vocational certificates, and you get that certificate now, not coming from QCAA, but they give us the authority to print them ourselves. So just be aware. So that all that certification happens at the end of year 12. So how are we going to be successful with year 12? Okay. First of all, we need to get credits for the QCE. In order to attain credits, you need to pass your classes, gentlemen. You need to select classes you are going to pass. Every unit, unit 1, 2, 3, 4, is worth a credit. So most students, on average, have a possibility of getting 24 credit points from our school. We offer one course through Binnacle, which is a Certificate 3 in Fitness, which is worth 8 QCE points. So those students who select that subject have a possibility of getting 28. But what happens if a student fails a unit? That number then drifts away. So I did have 2 students at the end of Unit 2, this first time we've gone through with Unit 2, so it's our current Year 12s, and it was already clear they would not get a QCE. So I advised parents, you need to get him a Certificate 2 in life-saving or something outside of school if you want him to get a QCE. And that becomes then onus on the parent. I hope that's kind of clear. All right? There's no other way to make up lost QCE credit points anymore. So if we can get students taking things that they like and things that they're good at, they will be accumulating those credits as they go. All right? So that's the main goal when we're doing the subject selection process. All right. Now, as you'll see here, it says a minimum standard. In vet certificates, it is competency. In all other subjects that we offer, it is a C or a C minus. On the report cards from 11 and 12, we will not be giving pluses or minuses anymore. So please be aware of that. All right, QCAA has advised us just to give a straight C, so there's no discriminator between a C minus, the very lowest, and a C plus, the very top. So please keep that in mind. Okay. So as you're reading the slide here, it's the information that I've tried to give you an idea, but what I want you to be clear about is that Unit 1 is separate from Unit 2, but Unit 3 and 4 are combined. So once students start Unit 3, at the end of Year 11, they will not be allowed to change subjects. Unit 3 and 4 are together. They cannot be separated. So students will either get 2 QCE credit points, or they will lose 2 QCE credit points, okay? Now, the other thing to keep in mind is completion of core. Now, in order to ensure that students have some consistency in their education, they must start a subject and end a subject and get 12 points toward their QCA with that. So they must actually pass at the end. So most of our students have no problem with this whatsoever, okay? If a student has tried to give math methods a go and hasn't done too well and has failed math methods in Unit 1 and transfers to general maths and passes Unit 2, 3, and 4, that student will get 3 points, and it will go toward completed core because it's all maths, okay? English works the same way, going from English to literature, literature to English, to essential English. It works the same way. It's one subject for completed core. But no other subjects are that way. So if a student went from physical education in Unit 1 and failed, and then change to sport and recreation for units 2, 3, and 4, they don't combine. So none of those credits would go toward completion of core. Now, during your set plans, I will go into a lot more of this in detail. But what I'm trying to impart to you is that from the very beginning, now with this new QCE system, it is more important than ever to ensure that your sons are choosing subjects they are going to like and they can cope with. We don't want to set them up initially with too much failure, because then it makes it very difficult to achieve their QCE, okay? Okay, so the curriculum offerings. If you remember the old OP system, general subjects are like OP. They get you ready for university. The new language is applied for those that don't go toward university, okay? And then we have VET offerings. So with the general subjects, there is generally a lot more rigor that goes along with it for what you are going to need to study. So here's the list that is currently on the students' lines. Lots of choice, but that means lots of work. The applied subjects are much more practical in nature. So for PE example, you might find yourselves, young men, being out on the field once a week. In sports and rec, you might be on the field 3 times a week. Very, very different. So just keep that in mind. The more general subjects that you take, the more you are going to be studying at home, and the more you are going to be in the classroom, needing to take notes, listen, etc. Right, the 4 VET certificates that we offer: Certificate 1 in Construction, Certificate 2 in Engineering Pathways, Certificate 2 in Kitchen Operations, and a Certificate 3 in Fitness. And that is done through Binnacle as the external RTO, but it is our teachers who provide the instruction. All of those are worth QCE points. So please keep that in mind. Everything that we offer at the moment, except for Catholic Faith in Action at the moment, all right, is worth QCE points. And I'll talk about Catholic Faith in Action in just a bit. Okay? So when you notice here at the bottom the completion of core, the Cert 1 in Construction is the only certificate, the only thing we offer that does not go toward that. So it's worth 3 QCE credit points, so that goes toward the total, but it will not be counted toward the 12. And again, I will help you out with that as we go through your set plans. Now, with our current year 12s, this is the first year that QTAC has been in charge of their tertiary exit number as a rank. All right? Previously, so if you've gone through this process before and know about QCA doing the OP, all of that is gone. So we've covered all the QCA information. Now all they're worried about is whether you pass high school or not. Now they send all the information to QTAC, and QTAC will calculate the ATAR. All right? So it goes in a big spread, 99.95 down to 30. So if any of you students were to make under 30, you would not know how low your mark was. For some reason, 30 is the number they have chosen because I guess they think that young people in Australia, or at least in Queensland, will be okay with that rather than 25 or 40. So it's an arbitrary number, so just be aware of that. Okay? Now, I guess the importance of ATAR depends on who you are. Nationwide, the ATAR is the main number that gets students into universities, but it is not the only way to get in university. New South Wales last year, I think it was 40%. Only 40% of university students use their ATAR in order to get in. So sometimes ATAR can be, that's good for my ego. Sometimes it can actually be necessary depending on what the student wants to study. If the student wants to go into medicine, for example, then the ATAR is very important. But if we have students who aren't going into medicine or physiotherapy or engineering, the ATAR probably isn't as important as what you might think. Okay? I'm not having very much luck with this pen. Okay, but there we go. But something to notice. Notice that an applied subject and the Cert 3 in Fitness can actually go toward your ATAR. So we need at least 4 general subjects and a fifth subject that's a Cert 3, an applied subject, or another general subject, okay? Now, here's the list of what happens. So it's calculated by QTAC, has 5 subjects. There is subject scaling applied. Unfortunately, I will not be able to help you out with that because the first cohort in Queensland has not had their exams to know what is going to scale better than others. But we can make educated guesses, okay? And I'll take you through that in just a bit. But please notice that English, passing English is mandatory in order to get your ATAR. English does not have to be used in the calculation of the ATAR, but students must pass English to get an ATAR, okay? All right, so here's my main question for you. Students, academic achievement, is it a priority? It's not a wish list. Are you making that a priority? Okay? At home, is studying being monitored? Okay? And that doesn't mean someone's watching over your shoulder, but it means that your parents are taking an interest in how you're studying and what you're doing. But here's the key. Is theoretical study enjoyable? And that is the thing that many young men need to think about. When they're choosing subjects, they think they're going to improve. Things will be different next year. And no student wants to be deflated and told that they can't do things, but we do want the boys to be honest with themselves. That is paramount. Okay, the last thing, outside commitments, sport, jobs, girlfriends, all those things have an impact on student study. We want students to have a balanced life, a balanced approach, but they need to be able to manage that balance. All right, so our system here, the boys were given this little sheet to find out what they might be interested in, and we had from that the current selection form that they've seen, okay? Now we had 93% of the students turn in that initial form. So it gives us an idea what students are going to be interested in, and with that, my job is to create lines. So lines mean the subjects happen all at the same time across the school. So we have 6 lines. I'll show you this form back in just a minute. So knowing that students are going to change their mind, and they'll continue changing their mind till the beginning of year 11, we know that, but we have to have a cutoff on a plan. We have to plan to make sure that we can have teachers teaching the subjects that the boys want to take. But it's very much student-driven. So if I know with this cohort, sorry about that, if I know with this cohort we need to have 4 PE classes, I make sure we get 4 PE classes on the lines because that's what they're interested in. But I'm not going to know that unless students are telling me quickly this is what they want. And that's what this is the first process that we're doing, okay? Now, you might have noticed from that initial part that was sent home that some of the subjects have been cut. We have already made a decision to cut ancient history, okay? So it is off the cards. We're not going to that one at all. We just did not have enough interest. Now, with the other subjects that we have that are on the list, okay, I'm going to just go a little forward here. With the other subjects that are here, we cannot promise that they will all run. Because once subjects are competing against another, students have to make choices. So, looking at line 4, I don't know if you can see it very well, specialist maths. I'm looking at initially, what does specialist maths need to compete against so that most students are going to be happy? Well, everyone who wanted to do specialist maths except one student is going to be happy. So it's best fit, best thing I can do. We did not have enough students to have 2 specialist maths classes. All right? So, not knowing exactly how it's all going to go, what we've done is put together a program. So students are going to select one subject from each line. Sometimes easier said than done. On line 5, they will choose one of the mathematics classes and they will choose one of the English classes. They can change their mind about this as we go through the set plan, okay? So if they are in mathematical prep now, it's a good idea that they then take mathematical methods. If they are in general mathematics prep at the moment and want to do mathematical methods next year, we need to change them now, very, very quickly, because there's no point in them being prepped in the different kind of maths that they're going to need if they really want to do mathematical methods in year 11 and 12, okay? So, one subject per line. So there's what the lines look like again, but what happens, oh no, what happens if I don't like anything? What happens if everything I like is on the same line? It can happen. Well, this is on this first form, and this form is due back in the college on Friday of this week. Choose one subject that you like, and it's arbitrary. There's not one that's more important than another. And then on other lines, write one of the subjects, say on line 1, I'll give you an example here. Why don't I just do that? Okay? So in our example, we have someone who wanted to do economics and study of religion. Well, at the moment, they're on the same line. So that student needs to choose one of them by circling or highlighting it on the form. And then, on a line that he doesn't choose anything, he needs to write one of the subjects in the wish list. So what we might find out is that enough students see a clash, and I can actually move a subject on a line. Sometimes we get more interest than we thought, and we can actually get 2 classes going, all right? So that first initial interest list is all it was initial interest. And things can change very dramatically along the way. But this is your last shot to get it right. Because Friday of next week, I will have the definite lines distributed to you boys before you go to camp. So you'll be able to take this home, all right? Your parents will see it, and then you start going through the process of selecting what is actually on offer, okay? So I've given you that information, but the one thing to look is that last paragraph about set plans. All right, so I conduct all the set plans, which means that hopefully we get both parents coming in, but we know that's not always possible, but the student and the parent. For boarding, if parents aren't able to make it, we can do something through Zoom or Loom or Skype. We can do a phone, or Mr. King, as the boarding head of boarding for year 10, he can actually be involved. All right, so we make accommodations for that. Now, we're going to have the set plan process hopefully happening over week 6, 7, and 8. So it's not urgent, all right, but sometimes if classes start filling up, and I'll give you an example like the Cert 1 in construction, only 15 kids showed interest in Cert 1 in construction, and if we only start running one class, those initial 15 will be the one to get in. All right, so that's why I'll need to know information from you now if you're more interested in it, all right, than what you were before, okay? But tonight, we're going to give you the opportunity to create appointments for set plans from weeks 6, 7, and 8, all right? If you're not ready to commit, don't worry about that. You can call the office, find a time, and hopefully over the next 3 weeks, we will get most of the set plans done. Last year, I had set plans continuing into term 4, and that is okay. Right? But like I said, sometimes classes do fill up, and that is the only weakness about delaying the set plan process. All right. So what should families do? So we have on the portal a copy of the subject selection booklet. Okay, so that information is there. We also have a copy of the set plan and a copy of the subject form that we distributed to the kids today. Okay? So we want communication to happen. This needs to be an ongoing conversation from now until the set plans and even afterward. So gentlemen, young men, this is what I need you to understand, okay? You are going to be trying to give your parents the best indication about what you want to do, but essentially it is their choice because they're paying your fees, okay? So you might need to be very sweet and kind and do a little extra housework to get what you want. You figure out a way to persuade your parents to do what it is that you know might be best for you. All right? But parents, I need you to be aware of that. It's fine for you to say it's his call. It's his choice for what he wants to do, but you're signing off on it. Okay? Because essentially it is your choice. Okay. Now here's that big thing about ATAR. Notice I'm not going into too much talk about the ATAR because there was still a lot we don't know. But the basic thing, sorry, I hit a button, did I? Okay. Are some subjects better for your ATAR than others? Yes, the ones that you're good at. The ones you're going to make your best marks will be best for your ATAR. And are some going to be weighted more heavily with scaling? Yes, it will happen. But like I said, we won't know definitely until this first year 12 group goes through. Now, educated guesses, the Super 6, which are specialist mathematics, mathematical methods, physics, chemistry, biology, and English, generally scale the best. Not always, okay? Not always, but generally. So any student who says, I'm going to take those 6 then, fine. You better love to study, okay? Because you're committing a lot of your free time to studying 6 power subjects. How many do you need for an ATAR? 5. So why take 6? Oh, just in case one of them's not so good. Well, why don't you drop the one you don't like and take something that doesn't have so much study? Might be a good idea to start from scratch that way. All right? But those are points to consider as you're trying to come up with a suite of subjects as you move ahead. All right, so all this will go in a lot more discussion when you have the individual set plan with me. Now, some of the boys have had an interview with Miss Light with careers, some have not. We're not trying to rush this process. It is possible you will have a set plan interview with me before you've seen Miss Light, and that's okay. But what we're looking at with the set plan is that, again, with the lines that are secure, what is going to be our best choice at the moment for what we think we want to do? And that's all we can ask. The best decision at this time, okay? If we know that things aren't going to be too good, we may draw it out a little bit, okay? My last set plan for year 11 this year took place in January, okay? We needed a student to just think really about what he was trying to take on board. And he was trying to take on those 6 power subjects. And he had a girlfriend, okay? She was really getting in the way of study. So I'm not sure if he's kept the girlfriend or not, but anyway, his marks have improved greatly. All right, websites of interest. We will go through this with the boys, so parents, you don't need to have all of this memorized, but there's information from QCA, My Future, and QTAC. So just giving you a little bit of an idea what the pages look like, maybe. Yeah, I think my pen has died. There we go. All right, and here's QTAC. Now on the site, there is information where you can go into and find out things of interest. So if you got on the QTAC website, you look at My Path, and it might be asking you questions like, I like working outdoors. Sometimes, always, never. That can be very, very helpful for students to decide what they want to do. All right? Simple questions. So go through some of these websites and look at career paths, and it can give students sometimes a little bit to think about, and it can come up with suggestions for future jobs, things that they may have never thought about considering, okay? So please avail yourself to those. Now, QTAC prerequisites, for those students who are definitely wanting to go into medicine, physiotherapy, and engineering, it is pretty important that you do look at a QTAC booklet to make sure you're taking the correct prerequisites from the beginning. Now, like I said, I will help you with that with the set plan interview. But it's pretty important if you're going to go into medicine that you're going to do chemistry, and because it's very competitive, you probably need to do specialist maths, all right? And in order to do specialists, you have to do mathematical methods, okay? if you're going to be a primary school teacher, you need to make sure you do a science at high school. Okay? If you're being a secondary high school teacher, now there's nothing. You just open slather, whatever you want to take. Okay? So you find out about the different jobs, if there is a definite way that you're focused, and you can find out what you need to take. So there's a little code for it, and it says prerequisite, assumed, and recommended. Now, all this information has been published before the coronial nature of our society has evolved. So things may not be as competitive as they were 2 years ago, but they could be just as competitive 2 years ago. We do not know, all right? So universities are moneymakers. And there's no problem for a student saying, well, I'm not going to do specialist maths now. Maybe I won't need it. And then goes into something at university and they say, oh, you didn't do specialists, so you're going to do a bridging course. That's great, but you have to pay for it. So just keep those things in mind, okay? So kids do need to have opportunities, but they don't necessarily know everything that's going to happen. But there are other pathways like bridging courses. Might be a little bit of money, okay? But what's going to keep you happy, gentlemen, for the next 2 years? And parents, that's really what I want you to think about. You have to live with them for another 2 years. So if you're pushing them in a direction and they're pushing back, how long do you want that to go on? Okay? So just keep that in mind. So with this first process and discussions, see how you start. Now, almost done. This one last thing I wanted to show you. There we go. All right. And you will see this starting to come out with this group, the new clusters. All right. So they're reclassifying things all the time. But one thing to look at is healthcare. All right. As we have an aging population, I hope no one is offended by that. It's just how things are going. All right. There are going to be lots of jobs in the healthcare industry. Okay. Things as artisans in making, it's all becoming robotic. A lot of those things are going down. So you might find some information about possibilities and futures on websites when you're looking at those things as well. Now, again, Ms. Light is very, very helpful with passing on information to students. So students, you need to make sure that you're making an appointment to see her when you can if you are having questions about careers after school, especially careers that aren't connected with university. All right? So last main message, and then I'll put the last real message on the screen, and that is about exiting, is what makes a happy person? So gentlemen, you see it there. Pick what you like and pick what you are good at. More than anything else. Okay? And parents, when you're having this discussion, you may remind them what they used to like and what they are good at. Visual art, for example. You might have a student going, oh no, I don't think I really want to do that. But if there's some talent there, he might actually start to enjoy it, especially if he hasn't been doing it for a couple of years. Okay? Now, I'm going to be around to answer questions if you have individual questions. All right? But before we do that, and I give you some final instructions, does anyone have a particular general question about this whole process, what we're doing, that I can clarify for everyone? Hopefully pretty straightforward. Okay, good. So, I know we're putting timelines on things, week 6, 7, and 8. Nothing is urgent, though. Okay, just keep that in mind. No decision at any time is going to be final. Nothing is written in stone. So just be flexible, go with the flow. And gentlemen, my office, hopefully you know where it is, downstairs in the front office. If you need to chat about anything, do make an appointment. But from week 6, my day is going to be very, very full. So just keep that in mind, okay? So the last thing, if you're not wanting to stick around and talk to any of the teachers, all right, that's okay. We just want you to exit through the middle doors, okay, if you would be doing that. But the teachers are going to spread themselves around. Now, we have heads of department. I will introduce some of them. Ms. Ogilvy, if you'll make your way toward the front, and okay, and all of you, okay, thank you. As you come up, just so you can see a face to where you're going, okay. So Ms. Ogilvy is the head of social science. So if you have particular questions about any of those. Ms. Oldfield is head of maths. Ms. Newen, English. Mr. McKenzie, PE. Ms. Spannenberg, Arts and music, Ms. Fish, e-learning, digital solutions, Mr. Johnson, technologies, Mr. Zell, science, Mr. Sorensen, business, and Mr. Killerman, languages. Now, most of the boys should know these teachers and where to go, but if you get confused along the way, just make sure you're talking to the right teacher who's in the charge of the correct department, okay? So we are going to get them to spread out a little bit. We know we're trying to have social distancing and all those things, all right? But they're going to be here for a little while. I'm going to be here for a little while on this side. And as you can see where Ms. McCormack is, she's put out some set plan interview times that if you're already knowing when you want to make a booking to see me, week 6 is right here. Week 7, the 2 new desks just on the other side of Ms. McCormack, and week 8 is up closer toward the hand sanitizer. So you can go ahead and put your names down and book a set plan if you're wanting to do that. Okay? Very much appreciate your attention. I know there's a lot of information to go through, but again, please don't think you need to know it all. All right? That's part of my job. And when if you do have questions, send me an email. I'll get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. All right? I hope you've enjoyed the talk. Hopefully it's going to be a good process, ladies and gentlemen, for you and your boys as you're figuring out how subject selection is going to go. All right? So again, thank you for coming. If you are exiting, please, we'd rather you not congregate outside of Lennon Hall. Make your way to Severn Street, and then if you're congregating on the sides of the street, that's okay. All right? That's your choice. All right. Thank you very much for coming.